What up? K-Rugs, the Sober Dog, coming at you with video 2 of the 17 outrageous ways drug addicts make money. If you like my videos and you like the Sober Dogs content, hit that like, that subscribe. Really help me out. Appreciate it. All right, let's get right into it. Yesterday I did 1 through 9. Today let's hit the 10 through 17. Number 10, check cashing scams. Check cashing scams are very popular with addicts, even though it is getting, less prevalent because of all the new technology. People aren't using checks as much, pretty simple, but still out there. Addicts will steal checkbooks. They will write checks to themselves from someone they know's checkbooks. If they steal someone's purse, they'll try cashing some of their checks if they can. More sophisticated operations, with fake IDs and things like that. Anything you could think of with scamming off of a check. Number 11, fraud. Fraud in general is very, just very prevalent and popular with drug addicts. And, I talked about it in the other video, but the reason being is most fraud crimes is pretty low sentences as far as, compared to a burglary or a robbery or a violent crime. So, here in New York State, burglary of someone's house is a violent crime, even if they're not home. So you can get a lot of time. Versus fraud, it's not as much time, and addicts weigh this stuff out. Anything from, like I said, with the check scams, that can be, under fraud, but you're talking the fake ID scams, you're talking the EBT scams, the food stamp fraud, people trying to defraud the government, get extra food stamp benefits, claim extra kids on the taxes, all that stuff in general. I know 2 guys, they worked at a landscaping company, and they owned it, actually, and they would do 4 or 5 good jobs, and then they'd get a big down payment after they got a referral from somebody. Hey, my cousin needs this done. They'd get a big down payment on a big job for the whole summer, mowing lawns and doing bricks and blah, blah, blah. They'd get $2,000 up front, and they would jet, never to be heard from again, at least from that person. They did this consistently for, a little bit of time until they got caught, but they'd keep moving different towns, so, their reputation didn't go with them until it did. Number 12, panhandling. Panhandling, begging, whatever you want to call it, the people you see at the side of the road with the signs, sometimes homeless, need money for food, veteran, whatever the case may be. Whether or not those people are telling the truth on the signs, I have no idea. I've known a lot of people who are telling the truth, that really are veterans homeless, and a lot that lie on them. So, I don't know, but panhandling is very popular, and, for good reason. I know people that would stand, a certain lady I knew would stand on the side of the road here in Rochester at a busy expressway, right at the exit ramp. 2 to 3 hours in the morning during rush hour, she'd make easy $40 to $50 and usually get a couple granola bars and some fruit or something people would give her, and she'd have money to at least go get herself high for the day. And it might be illegal, but if a cop pulls you over, or stops you, all they're going to say is get out of here. They don't really care. So the risk is very low. I do know when I lived in Baltimore, panhandlers used to fight over the popular corners because there was panhandlers everywhere in Baltimore. But that's a very popular one. 13, relationships. Many, addicts will get in relationships with people. Sometimes it's other addicts, but mostly not, that they know they could take advantage of. A girl or a guy will date somebody that maybe their self-esteem is low. Maybe they're coming off another bad relationship, and the addict will use that. Sometimes it's maybe a good-looking girl or a good-looking guy who's the addict, and they date somebody who is not so good-looking. They use that to their advantage because the other person feels like, wow, I'm lucky to even have this person. So then they use them for money. They use them for a place to stay. Just things like that. Another good friend of mine I just talked to when I was doing some research for this video about a week ago told me she'd go right up to her, her ex-husband, and she'd say, "Give me money now. I can't be sick. Give me money." And he would always give in because he didn't want her to leave. He didn't want her to be sick. And she knew she could get away with it, and she did it to the maximum amount. So it's sad but true. Number 14, pawning items. Pawn shops and, addiction go hand in hand. I should say pawn shops and addicts, the relationship, unfortunately. Pawn shops have a reputation for looking the other way on stolen items, or looking the other way if people have an ID that's clearly not them. There's a lot of pawn shops, especially in, rough areas, that don't give a crap at all if you come in with items that are still in the box that you could have stole 5 minutes ago, and they knew that. They take it, they either rip it out of the box, or they, repackage it, or they sell it online at their pawn shop's online store or on eBay or whatever. Get rid of it quick, get it out of state. But pawning items is very popular. Traditionally, pawning is, I take my gold necklace and I go to the pawn shop, and it's worth, this one at least was worth, a couple $100. It cost me a little bit over $500. And I could go to the pawn shop, they'll say it's worth $500. So, we'll give you $300 for it. And, you come back on Friday and you owe us $330 and we'll give it back to you. Or if you come back 3 Fridays from now, you owe us $350 and then you can get it. That's how pawning works. Addicts will pawn anything and everything they can. And I pawned a ton of stuff, unfortunately. And most of us addicts will tell ourselves, when we steal from a friend or family or like our own stuff, "Oh, it's okay. I'm just going to get money for today and this week, and then I'll go back and get it." 95% of the time, we don't go back and get our item because we don't have the money to, as much as we want to. So, pawning items, sad but true way addicts get money. Number 15, selling middling drugs. This one, it's a clear progression. If I'm a drug addict and I'm buying drugs and buying drugs and using all the time, and I have buddies who get high, and, I could go buy their stuff for them and charge them a couple extra bucks, well, we do it. Or, I know a lot of guys, like suburban kids, who are getting high maybe at the beginning of their addiction, or maybe they're just people who use drugs for, recreational purposes, but they don't want to go to the city, in the the ghetto, the hood, whatever, where the best and cheapest drugs are. So there'll be one guy who's always willing to do that, and he'll come back and sell them to the guys in the suburbs for a jack up on their price. Or there'd be a couple of us who used to have the good connect with the drug dealer that is very kind of secretive but has the best stuff. And that drug dealer would only deal with 1 or 2 people. So when my buddies wanted that good stuff, they'd come to me and they were willing to pay me a little bit extra. And I could, jack the price up because it was the good stuff. Then that progresses. Sometimes it just stays at middling, but usually into, bigger drug dealing. But if it's an addict dealing drugs, it never works out because we always end up using our stuff and using our profit. And I do know a couple people, I knew 2 gentlemen who smoked crack, that was their addiction, who sold heroin because they didn't do heroin. So they didn't dig into their profit, but they still spent all their profit on crack anyway, so whatever. Number 16, scrapping. As you can see, I'm sitting in my truck. I'm putting scrap in here before. Scrapping, is if you go to the scrap yard with metal, they'll pay you for it. And, most people don't want to sit there and take 2 hours to dig apart their old washing machine because the scrapyard, you got to have everything sorted and all the plastic and screws ripped out already. But addicts will. They'll go, people's garbage. They'll dig through it, old bicycles, washing machines, bed frames, take it apart, separate it, and go to the scrap place that might give them, I have no idea what the numbers are, 80 cents a pound on aluminum and whatever. I'm just making that number up right now, but I'm just using something for example. And the addict could leave with $30, $40 if they went scrapping all day. So scrapping, is a very, very kind of easy, and it's not illegal. So, many addicts like doing that. In Baltimore, there's a story out of Baltimore where the addicts realized that they could tear down the light poles, the street light poles, and break them apart and bring them to the scrap yards. Each pole is worth about almost $200 in scrap, between $130 and $200, depending on the size. So 130 poles went missing in about a month period in Baltimore. And the city had to go in and get new light poles made out of different metal and all this. Where there's a will, there's a way. Addict will find a way to get high. They will find a way to get money. We always do. And last but not least, lawsuits. Addicts are infamous for this. You can go into the store, I walk ahead and I spill my bottled water, and Joey's behind me, and he walks and he slips and falls and he stays on the ground and he's screaming and blah, 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 demands money from the manager. Now, most of the time, the manager doesn't have the authority and is not going to give money right on the spot. But sometimes they'll throw you a $20, $30 gift card, say, get the hell out of here. But this is the long game, which, most of us, drug addicts don't have the patience, at least during our addiction, to do the long game, but a lot do. If they do slip and fall and really get hurt, even if they set it up or not, call a lawyer, sue the store. It's going to take, months, maybe years of litigation, but most of the time, if it's even halfway legit, the store's willing to settle for a couple grand, depending on how bad it was. And that's sad, but true. When I was in jail, guys used to come up to me all the time and say, spill the mop water and don't put out the wet floor signs. I'd say, for what? Just do it. And I never did it because I'd always get screamed at by other inmates, and then the guards are yelling at me, so I just mopped like I was supposed to. I didn't want to get all these people yelling. But some other guys would spill some of the mop water, would mop really wet, and another guy'd come out of his cell and slip and bust his head, and I'm suing the jail, and he'd fill out all the paperwork, and sometimes they went through, sometimes they didn't. Anyway, addicts will find a way to get money. Rob, steal, lie, cheat. That person, I do not want to make excuses for addicts when we do terrible things to get money, but it is the addiction. I knew what I was doing every time I did something bad, but it is like a tractor beam force pulling me to get high. Everything else is just non-existent at that moment. But that doesn't excuse it. It's just, this video is for informational purpose. Everything in here pretty much is illegal. Everything in this video. So please do not do any of this. This is scams, illegal. You will get in trouble, go to jail. This video is meant for informative purposes. So people, if they, have suspect that someone in their family is getting high, they know what to look for. They know how to protect their own finances, things like that. All right. K Ruggs, the Sober Dog, out. See ya. A full article up at Soberdogs.com.